Andy Dick holds the record for the longest running downward spiral in Hollywood history. He's a comedian who has no classic specials, no iconic bits, no legendary roles, and yet he is famous for being the guy that consistently found opportunity despite being a serial predator, a raging alcoholic, not really being funny, and nobody really liking him. At 59 years old, Andy is still getting absolutely wasted and occasionally being knocked out by random guys who are not willing to tolerate his antics. But this isn't surprising considering Andy once said, "I don't know the difference between harassment and trying to get a date," and has spent the past 3 decades proving he wasn't kidding when he said that. Then again, you can't help but look at those who gave Andy a platform as partially responsible for the damage he's done. Most jobs he got were because people knew he was a loose cannon, and that chaos could make for viral moments.
Oh no! Be careful! It's like a monkey!
For every man, woman, and child that became a victim of Andy Dick, there is a producer, comedian, or casting director who knew something bad could happen and they hired him anyway. This is the deranged, bizarre, and horrifying downfall of Andy Dick, where just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. For a lot of comedy fans in the 1990s, it was honestly confusing how Andy Dick was becoming famous. He was far from the funniest guy on stage, and a lot of his bits just landed poorly.
Hey, with this outfit, though, don't I look like, hey, I'm Andy, the Candyman Dick. What do you need? Huh? What do you need, huh? I got it for you. What do you need? Come on. What do you need? You want something? Anything? Oh, what am I doing? Oh, no.
If his jokes weren't landing, Andy would frequently resort to exposing his private parts to the audience. But looking back, there was a small push for extremely raunchy and brain-dead comedy in the late 90s and early 2000s, especially considering the popularity of crass films like American Pie, There's Something About Mary, and Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo. Andy's humor fit right in with fans of those movies. One comedian who was a big fan of this sort of off-the-wall, bizarre, and nonsensical humor was Ben Stiller, and he was the one who discovered Andy Dick in one of those small comedy clubs and hired him as a reoccurring character on the Ben Stiller Show. The show was not very popular and it suffered from low ratings. However, it was one of the first modern series to rely solely on comedy instead of laugh tracks, and Andy's ability to morph into various comedic characters showed some versatility and helped him get noticed by more studios. Andy quickly became a favorite for sitcom producers. It's hard to find a show where he didn't at least make a small appearance, like the remake of the James Bond parody Get Smart, workplace comedy Less Than Perfect, and a memorable role as the eccentric stylist on The Nanny. Andy also managed to land roles in a handful of movies at the time, like the film adaptation of Double Dragon and a war comedy with Pauly Shore called In the Army Now, where he played as a soldier who always failed to meet the expectations of his superior officers. While critics felt indifferent about the film, it still raked in $30 million, which was a great success for a side character like Andy Dick. And this was kind of Andy's value at the time in Hollywood. By himself, he was a mediocre comic, but perfect as a sidekick, buddy, or guest star to the main character on TV. Sometimes he could play a somewhat likable, oddball character, and other times he could just be straight up insufferable and annoying.
That's my problem. I don't have a filter. And I just say, you know how I have diarrhea? I just have diarrhea of the mouth. I just like, yeah, it gets me in trouble.
Being so open gets you in a lot of trouble, though, right?
Trouble. Yeah, that's why my publicist comes along and she's like, no. You know, but what am I going to do? I can't lie. I can't.
Now, it's not necessarily that Andy's on-screen performance is what prevented his career from thriving. It's likely what happened off-screen. He struggled with countless addictions and compulsions, like exposing himself in public spaces, and the money that he was making would only make it easier to find and do whatever he wanted. It all started to crash and burn when he got blamed for the death of his co-star, Phil Hartman. By 1995, Andy Dick had landed a regular role on the NBC sitcom News Radio. The show took place in the middle of New York City, where Andy Dick played a reporter named Matthew Brock. As Brock, he would do something clumsy or stupid and get bullied by the news anchors for never managing to do anything right. He also shared the screen with Joe Rogan, who played the building's electrician and handyman. However, the two of them didn't really get along behind the scenes. Even today, Rogan seems to have a love-hate relationship with Andy, resenting the way he handled himself while on the set of the show.
There were no kids on news radio, right? Were there any Lifetime? They were all adults.
Yes, all adults except Andy Dick. Andy Dick's just whatever he is.
Yeah. Have you had him on recently? Yeah.
I had him on once, and I'm like, that's enough.
Yeah.
But according to Andy, Joe was a bit of a bully. He allegedly made co-stars cry and felt that he was being a little too aggressive the way he was calling Andy out.
I hated him. He was so mean. He would make the ladies cry. We're friends now. Well, he was just what's it called? A misogynist, a masochist. He was a lady hater. What's that word? Misogynist. He just, and I think maybe still is, I don't know. But he would get down on me in front of the NBC executives. You're high right now, Dick. You freak. If you just went out in your chair and you smoked pot, he's high right now. In front of, like, the NBC executives, and I was close to tears.
However, Andy would ultimately prove that it was in fact him that was the problem on set, which damaged the show's reputation after he assaulted Helen Hunt at a dinner party.
It was the first SAG Awards. We got in, we were having a lovely time. Unfortunately, Andy Dick.
Yes.
Andy Dick.
Yes.
Decided to get up on the table and show people what he's made of, as it were.
Oh, his last name.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I think he did. I think he waved it in front of Helen Hunt's face, as I recall.
Helen.
Yeah, that was it for us.
That was the end of your invitation to the SAG Award. No matter how terrific an ensemble cast.
Will Smithed out is what we did.
Now, in that clip, the way these two guys talk about Andy's antics is truly reflective of how people laughed off his behavior, which never made him truly face any consequences. They have this, oh, that's just Andy being Andy type energy. Joe Rogan was actually one of the few people who didn't want to let this behavior slide and actually called Andy out for being dysfunctional.
I didn't know that he's talked a ton of shit about me on Mark Maron's podcast, where he's talking about me when we were younger on news radio, about what an I was to him. I had no idea. And then he came on the podcast and he barely said, he was intimating that I was mean to him when he was young. But I'm like, dude, you used to pull your dick out, you used to show up.
Yeah, you probably just always had a look on your face like, what the f*** are you doing?
It was hard to work with him.
That translates into, he's a meanie.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't stand around and laugh at all my antics.
But on Maron's podcast, my God, he had it so twisted.
Regardless of the tension on set, news radio was successful enough to reach its 4th season, and for a moment, it looked like Andy Dick was entering a new leveled up phase in his career. He got a small role in The Cable Guy, a 1996 Jim Carrey film, which was equivalent to hitting the lottery for comedy careers in Hollywood. Unfortunately, Andy could not remain sober for long enough to capitalize on his momentum. To make things worse, the man who was trying to keep him clean was Chris Farley, who was battling his own demons with addiction. This relationship would be the first of many that would send Andy spiraling further. At his worst, Chris Farley was suffering from one relapse after another, and while it wasn't widely known at the time, comedians in the green room noticed that Andy and Chris had developed a toxic codependent relationship, where the two would run off and relapse together if they ever crossed paths.
I see Farley disappear into a bathroom with Andy Dick.
Oh, boy.
Okay, him and Andy go into a bathroom.
Yeah.
They come out 5 minutes later like giggling. I said there's only 2 reasons a man goes into a bathroom with Andy Dick, and neither one of them's good.
Tragically, the jokes ended on December 18th, 1997, when Farley was found dead in a hotel room from a lethal overdose of morphine and cocaine. After Farley's death, Andy was becoming more unhinged and reckless than usual, and people took notice when Andy showed up to Phil Hartman's Christmas party with hard drugs he wanted to share. According to people close to Hartman, Andy Dick convinced Hartman's wife, Bryn, to sneak away to do a little cocaine. Now, under different circumstances, this might have just been seen as another celebrity doing drugs at a Hollywood party. But Bryn was a mother of 2 and had been sober for 10 years. For the next 5 months, Bryn apparently slipped into a state where she completely lost her mind and was consistently using pills, alcohol, and cocaine. and as a result of that, she murdered her husband and then herself. The death of Phil Hartman is still considered one of the most tragic deaths in the world of comedy. A lot of people in the industry saw him as the comic's comic, a reliable coworker and a loyal friend. Not to mention, he was another SNL legend. One of the most heartbroken comedians was former cast member and co-star Jon Lovitz, who couldn't help but cry while he was doing a short on-screen eulogy after the incident.
My older brother, Phil Hartman, spent 8 years at Saturday Night Live, and he eventually worked with over 25 cast members. But all of us were with him at the beginning.
Jon Lovitz ultimately took Phil Hartman's place in news radio to honor him. However, Andy Dick was still a major part of the show, and Lovitz continued to confront and blame Andy for Phil's death behind the scenes. At one point, Andy told Lovitz, "You shouldn't be here," to which Lovitz replied, "Well, I wouldn't be here if you hadn't give Bryn in the first place." But according to Andy, Phil Hartman was a father figure to him, allowing him to bring his ex-wife and kids over whenever he was in need of family time or advice. To Andy, he couldn't see the connection between his behavior and Bryn's fateful decisions.
So anyhow, he was like a surrogate father. He was my father. He would give me great advice and this and that. And then he tragically died because his wife was on Zoloft and then went off it, and then any kind of pills can really f you up, and she shot him and shot herself, and people blame me.
Why?
Because they say that I gave Phil's wife, Bryn was her name.
I remember. I met them once.
Great couple. They were a great loving couple, great family. The kids are great. Everybody was great.
Why?
And then pills just her up.
Why did they blame you? Did you give them to her?
No.
Now, it's definitely unfair to blame Andy for somebody else's lifelong struggles with their mental health and addictions that he really had nothing to do with. But the reality is there are a ton of people that believe Andy Dick's actions started the ripple effect that led to Phil Hartman's death. You can imagine this weighed greatly on Andy, and as a result, he actually spent one of his first real stints in rehab after this. When he got out, he made the terrible decision to go on Howard Stern to talk about his experiences as an addict. But Howard Stern is not your friend. He's a shock jock and an entertainer, so him poking and prodding at Andy made him visibly depressed.
We used to hang out with Farley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got high with him a lot. You two must have been a terror together.
We used to have fun,
yeah.
But you know, sober too. No, but really.
Really?
I had a lot of fun sober.
Did you ever make it with him?
Oh! He's a lot of man to love.
He sure is.
He really is a great guy.
All right, so wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, we never made it. No.
You're a bit of a jinx, you know. Farley, Hardman.
Look, don't.
I'm pinning that on Andy.
I already have a lot.
Did you know Phil's wife, Bryn? You know I interviewed the two of them together?
Well, I don't want to hear any of that.
I'm going to play it for you.
No, they were both
come here, I'll tickle
people.
you.
No.
He's really straightened his act out.
I know. He's much calmer.
Yeah, look at you. You want some
No.
Get Andy a glass of tequila, please.
No.
Let's see if you're really good.
Let's spice up that iced tea.
Yeah.
As much as Andy tried to remain sober, he just seemed incapable of keeping it together in Hollywood. Just like the situation with Chris Farley, people started noticing a pattern. It was never good if you saw someone walking away to hang out with Andy Dick. It's almost like Andy Dick was the guy you would hang out with when you're at your lowest moment, because he's not going to hold you accountable. He's not going to say, "Hey man, you should really get your act together." He would indulge in your vices with you, probably justify them, making it worse. Shortly after rehab, Andy would relapse and fly with co-star David Strickland from Los Angeles to Las Vegas to party for 3 days at strip clubs. Tragically, Strickland had a past of manic depressive episodes and died in a motel room while the two were spending every hour getting as high as possible. It was this moment where it really did look like Andy Dick was carrying some kind of curse, and after the loss of yet another actor, Andy just continued to spiral down. He was caught by police in LA after ramming his car into a pole and trying to flee the scene. He later pleaded guilty to felony possession and misdemeanors for possession and possession of a smoking device, but somehow he managed to escape those charges even though his mugshot made him look guilty of whatever they were accusing him of. The judge promised to dismiss the charges as long as he participated in an 18-month drug diversion program, which he completed well enough to walk away free. Initially, this seemed to be the final wake-up call Andy needed to stay sober, plus the fact that he now had 3 children at this point, a 9-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a newborn daughter. If he was going to provide a life for them, them, he would have to prove that he could stay clean. However, it was never meant to last. There was just something about Andy Dick that couldn't be rehabilitated or repaired. The moment you thought he was clean and safe, he always managed to find an even crazier way to damage his life and reputation, all while hurting people close to him. It's almost like this lifestyle was thrilling and exciting to him. Around the early 2000s, Andy Dick was seemingly tired of his own mess and close to taking off in Hollywood. He got some small roles in Inspector Gadget, Road Trip, Dude, Where's My Car, Zoolander, and Dr. Dolittle 2, all comedy films that had significant box office success. He was still considered wacky and unpredictable, but controlled enough to producers that MTV ended up greenlighting The Andy Dick Show. It ran as a mockumentary-style sketch comedy show, where Andy would parody celebrities and make fun of pop culture.
Well, hi, Anus. Do you have a little surprise for me? Oh, thank you, Anus. That's going to make somebody very happy. Hello. Welcome to the Anus and Andy Show.
But unlike his time with Ben Stiller, Andy's comedy was so aggressive that it was like he was just begging to be canceled. If he wasn't dressing up as Adolf Hitler, he would be riding that razor-thin line between edgy and offensive.
My name is Rod Crandall. I'm a midget wrangler.
Midget, stop.
When I say I'm a midget wrangler, I get a lot of blank stares like, huh? Or what the?
Midget, up then.
Because people, all they see is a little creature bopping around on the set doing their funny little bop and hop and bop.
All right, that was good.
They don't understand that there's a man behind the scenes making that all happen.
He also took part in a reality TV show called The Assistant, where Andy would take on someone in the show as a personal assistant to help him with day-to-day tasks.
The man you have to kiss up to, the man who will decide your future. I give you Mr. Andy Dick.
Go ahead and laugh at me. America seems to. They pay me for it.
Around this time, Andy was mostly staying out of the press. He mostly distanced himself from groups that encouraged his drug habits, and he appeared to be finding ways to express his own style without causing bodily harm to himself or others.
You, of course, you had some issues a few years ago in your life.
Yeah.
You had some drinking was going on. How long have you been sober now?
Sober for 2 years and almost 3 months.
What made you stop drinking? What made you, Andy Dick, look in the mirror and go, it's got to stop?
I think the laundry list of people I was offending, you know, it just was growing and growing.
Right. Like, what kind of people were you offending?
Bono.
Bono? You offended Bono? How did you offend Bono?
When you start offending, like, these good people, you know, the people that are well-loved by all of America, you have to start wondering. And then Wesley Snipes, there was a whole thing. I don't want to get into that.
What happened with Wesley Snipes?
I don't want to get into it.
But whenever it came to Andy, nothing good could ever last. He just had a special talent for pissing people off, like how he whispered something in the ears of rock star Marilyn Manson, and things quickly turned ugly.
Andy leans over to Mac, and he goes like this. And Mac just goes like this. Just literally like that. He's saying talking to somebody else.
What was he saying?
Who the knows, man? I was dancing. I couldn't hear anything. And then he goes like this. And he turns to Manson and he goes, and I swear to you, Manson goes like this. Just hits him right in the throat. And Andy just like sort of takes that hit and just like has a funny.
Do we imagine? Well, Andy, you know, there's that old thing, you know, gay when drunk, or in Andy's case, gay when on, or maybe I don't know, but. What could Andy have said?
I don't know. He said all kinds of inflammatory.
Again, this clip, you have two guys who can't help but laugh at Andy being insufferable. And while we can easily blame drugs and alcohol for some of Andy's annoying tendencies, his extremely inappropriate behavior likely stems from something much deeper. And it's something he had been dealing with since he was a small child.
I was, let's just say I was very... Right, all the way from as far as I can remember. I remember today, to right now. No, but seriously, I remember in first grade. I remember bending over all of the neighborhood kids, girls and guys. Yeah, this was just a fun thing. It wasn't so much as curiosity. Right, having them drop trowel. Yeah, and bend over the picnic bench. Yeah. And then there's like 4 or 5 of them, and I was playing butt bongos on their bare butts.
Well, that's sort of fun.
That was fun. Sure. But I remember my mom on the back kitchen window just tapping it. She was literally just going, yeah. tapping. I look up and she just is wagging her finger.
Now, according to Andy, he can't remember exactly what caused this behavior to escalate, but after his conversation with Dr. Drew, it was clear to everyone but Andy that something seriously altered him early in his life.
And you told me that your mom used to take you to a urologist as early as age 5.
One time because of something. I don't remember this. She had to tell me because I wasn't peeing. And then he said I was mad much
at 5.
But I don't remember that.
Were you abused the kid?
I think so. Because I had dreams of, I had this one dream where I was, first of all, I was sent away for almost a year to be taught how to use the toilet, to be potty trained. So like when I was 2 or 3. That's odd.
Sent away?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yep. To like my grandparents or something. I don't remember any of it. The only thing I remember is collecting eggs in the hen house and this weird nightmare, or maybe it happened, where I'm peeing in the toilet and there's a man peeing above me in the toilet and he slammed the lid down on my pee.
And while it's okay to be empathetic towards someone who may be suffering from childhood trauma, at some point in adulthood, you have to take responsibility for the harm you inflict on others. Trauma stops being the genuine reason and starts becoming a self-justified pattern you choose not to confront. And by 2004, Andy Dick was back to being famous for his off-screen behavior rather than his on-screen performances. He was once again arrested, this time for indecent exposure after mooning people at a local McDonald's, and since it was a minor crime, he was released shortly after. But if Andy wasn't working in Hollywood, his criminal record would easily justify him having to register as an offender. But he kept getting a mere slap on the wrist because he was working in an industry that celebrated and promoted his clownish antics and degenerate behavior. Because he was still able to get tertiary roles in Hoodwinked, Happily and Ever After, and Employee of the Month. Again, films with pretty decent box office success. When Andy was sober, you could see some potential in him, like this short back and forth with the comedy legend Norm Macdonald.
My aunt turned her house into a bed and breakfast. I guess she woke up and said, "Not enough strangers are here."
Died of a heart attack at his home in Malibu.
That's horrible.
Do you want to hear my impression of the
That's going to be you if you don't lose weight.
Do you want to hear my impression of the 9/11 call from Johnny Carson?
The 911 call.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. But 9/11 was a national tragedy.
Yes, it was.
Why do you laugh at that?
You said it.
But for Andy, one step forward always led to 2 steps backwards, and his degeneracy was on full display at the Comedy Central roast of Pamela Anderson in 2005. Without any warning or prior rehearsal, Andy decided to do a bit as a plastic surgeon and inspect Anderson's chest, in what was just an excuse to grope her in front of millions of viewers. Now, I can't play the full clip, but he grabs her breasts for a full minute without letting go as she laughs uncomfortably. Just because she is laughing does not mean she thinks what he is doing is funny. Take it from someone who has had the same thing happen to them. It was not funny when it happened to me either. Sometimes people laugh uncontrollably when they're uncomfortable. How does this guy still have a career? People get thrown in jail for doing less, and this was on TV, so the evidence is all there. You can't help but wonder if Andy was specifically hired to cause chaos. Now, Comedy Central roasts are known to get edgy, but Andy was always willing to cross a line. He had a very similar encounter with Ivanka Trump on Jimmy Kimmel 2 years later, where he inappropriately touches her, and it's not really a joke.
I have no idea what he's doing behind me. He's perfectly still. I'm like trying to be very, very.
You don't play up the glitter on your legs.
Oh, you don't.
Andy, don't please. Don't touch Ivanka.
Oh wait, did I say I was single and then I had a boyfriend?
Andy, please don't. Donald Trump will kill both of us.
Now, Jimmy Kimmel was definitely aware of Andy Dick's tendencies because he attacked a guest years earlier, which led to him getting slammed on his back. Even when Andy refused to stop touching Ivanka, security was brought out in a way that made it look like it could have been just a controversial bit or some kind of performance art. However, Andy's behavior was far from an act. In 2008, he was arrested for theft and battery in Orange County, California, after groping a 17-year-old girl. The incident allegedly occurred in the middle of a restaurant, and Andy apparently even went as far as to try and pull down her top. Once again, he somehow managed to escape serious charges, and he was ordered to serve 3 years of probation and wear an alcohol monitor for a year. In 2010, he was at it again. This time, Andy allegedly grabbed a bouncer's genitals and groped and kissed a patron at a Dallas nightclub. He pleaded not guilty and claimed that they just wanted money from a famous celebrity, only to also be sued for assault that same year when Andy allegedly put his genitals on the face of an audience member. But for unknown reasons, the charges were soon mysteriously dropped. This vicious cycle just seemed to be repeating over and over again. Andy's agent would get him a gig during a brief moment of supposed sobriety, then he'd get a big payday and go back to partying on hard drugs and committing crimes. In 2013, a Good Samaritan picked Andy Dick up without fully understanding who he was. They just wanted to help. He didn't know where he was staying, the source said. He had no cell phone or wallet. While she was driving, Andy allegedly grabbed her steering wheel and blasted music to the point where they almost lost control. When we got to the house, Andy told my husband he was hungry. My husband made him eggs, but Andy spat at me because I could not put a song he requested on my iPod quickly enough. He kept asking if I was a moron. If Andy wasn't harassing people that were just trying to help him, he became notorious for walking into nightclubs hammered and getting into fights. He'd ruin events and often end up urinating publicly before disappearing to find another party to crash. He'd show up on strangers' couches, bushes, and sidewalks, babbling incoherently or getting so aggressive that he would often get physically assaulted, like when he grabbed a paparazzi's microphone and things quickly went south.
Andy, what's wrong with you, Andy? What's wrong? Watch out before you hit your camera, dude. I'm serious. See? Get it! See? Got it! You're not gonna let go!
He got it.
Damn!
Hey, I'll tell you.
He's not.
Hey! What's not cool? That's not good. Man, I can't do that. You guys.
Okay, guys, everybody needs to get off the I know.
But as Andy continued to lose control, it got harder and harder for even the most loyal fans to make excuses. He might have had some hidden childhood trauma or a serious drug problem, but it didn't justify all of these crazy stunts that would have landed anyone else in jail. And in 2017, his career opportunities were finally starting to seriously dry up. After Andy was fired from a movie, Raising Buchanan, for allegedly coming to the set completely wasted, he was being accused of being a total creep, licking, groping, and generally assaulting his co-stars. It didn't help that Andy basically admitted to everything but justified it in his own twisted way. I didn't grope anybody. I might have kissed somebody on the cheek to say goodbye and then licked them. That's my thing. I licked Carrie Fisher at a roast. It's me being funny. I'm not trying to harass people. I didn't grab anybody's genitals. As if that wasn't the most insane way to justify assaulting someone, listen to this. I don't know the difference between harassment and trying to get a date. In the 70s, all the girlfriends I got was by kissing and licking their cheek. I don't know anymore. There were beautiful women and beautiful guys on set. I flirt with them. I might kiss someone on the set and ask them to go to dinner. They're the ones that took it south. Of course I'm going to proposition people. I'm single, depressed, lonely, and trying to get a date. They can just say no, and they probably did, and then I was done. It's amazing to me that Andy said this at the peak of the Me Too movement, and yet nobody was really outraged. Probably because A, he wasn't really that famous anymore, and B, you couldn't be shocked by Andy Dick anymore. His behavior wasn't treated like a scandal. It was treated like weather. Annoying, unpredictable, and somehow unavoidable. But random strangers were not so quick to brush off Andy and say, oh, that's just what he always does. Like how a man at One-Eyed Jack's nightclub in New Orleans threw a punch so hard it left Dick critically wounded. Nobody knows exactly what happened, but at this point in his life, 99% of people, after hearing that Andy Dick got knocked out outside of a nightclub, they would probably say it was his fault and he deserved it.
As you can see on this security video, a man appears to be waiting for Dick, then lands a vicious blind punch that knocks the comedian out cold.
I saw the whole thing. The punch just, Andy dropped like a rag doll. It was extremely scary and smacked the back of his head so hard on the cement there, on the cement sidewalk.
As the attacker calmly picks up his beer and walks away, there were tense moments as Dick remained unconscious on the ground.
He wasn't responding to me. I was looking at it. His eyes were going all over the place. He was trying to like swallow his tongue. He was like not talking to me.
The performer's friends say he was diagnosed with a concussion and bleeding on the brain, spending 2 nights in the hospital before flying back to Los Angeles.
Around the same time, Andy's own family started to turn against him. He had already had a long-standing reputation for showing up intoxicated at every occasion, like how he later admitted to Vice that he'd been giving them a lot of presents on Christmas, only for his kids to just wish that he wasn't drunk all the time.
What kid would say that's too many presents? Only a kid that would think that just was too many presents. I was like trying to buy their love. Like, yeah, your dad's a up, but look, he gets you tons of presents. Just too many. It was really them saying, can you stop with the presents and maybe just don't be drunk? Just give us love.
But it was eventually too much to deal with. His ex-wife, Lena Sved, got a temporary restraining order against him after he continued to get into frequent arguments with their son while drunk. Sved also shared that Andy broke 2 front windows in order to get back inside the home. When she later arrived to the house, she says Dick was gone, leaving a mess of broken glass and dishes behind. During the second incident reportedly mentioned in the court documents, Dick was allegedly screaming and swearing at Jacob, broke several dishes, and flipped over a coffee table. In 2019, he was pulled into court for allegedly groping an Uber driver. In 2021, he also turned on his own boyfriend at the time, allegedly hitting him with a liquor bottle and steel chair and even a frying pan.
I didn't hit him. A cast iron skillet hit him.
He hit you with a skillet?
I
Sure did, bud. What'd he do to deserve that?
Everything. He my friend's wife, and I walked in on him. Me and my friend walked in on him. My friend's wife. What? Put her on him.
So what, do you just everybody or something?
Slinging, man. Catching cast iron pans, I guess.
16 stitches. Guess who goes to
It's
jail?
method acting. Google
Guess who goes to jail?
You.
Me.
Once again, Andy managed to slip through the cracks of the justice system, getting out of jail on a $50,000 bond. Even during a podcast with Bobby Lee, who is known to be extremely crass and distasteful, Bobby seemed like the more normal person in the room, as Andy drunkenly screamed at his literal broken wrist.
Yeah.
Pardon my wrist.
Because I have...
I hate you. wrist. I hate my wrist. It broke on me.
But you and
Why'd you go and break on me?
And this right here, in terms of
great.
laughs from me...
I guess you're a superstar. You
stop calling your wrist a...
It's like,
we got offended now. Yeah.
He's trying to talk.
Oh, yeah. See, wrist talk. Say something, wrist. Well, the most sincere... I can't do it, Andy. I just can't. You know, I can't do it because I don't think this is the appropriate time to do it.
Oh, you know, yeah, because if you're going to start an intervention...
I'm not starting
I'll walk right the fuck out. And by the way, I'm not going to walk out the front door. I'm going to walk off the balcony.
And after 3 decades of being unable or unwilling to change his behavior, Andy Dick's Hollywood career was seemingly over. In the 2020s, he would downgrade from a low-level Hollywood star to doing cameos and essentially becoming a pet for abusive lolcow streamers online. No matter how desperate Andy managed to get, it was like he had a special gift for finding a new rock bottom, each one lower than the last. By 2022, Andy Dick had clearly put himself in a new kind of financial hell, so he jumped on the Cameo app, where people could pay him and request a personalized video for birthdays, graduations, or a quick laugh. For Andy, it was just another way to get insanely drunk and make money at the same time.
You learn a lot. It's more said, ladies and gentlemen, by me, Andy Dick. It's for Nathan McGee and his birthday on May 9th. It's going to be 45 and he's still alive, folks. And the way you get through this, because I know Mike, Maureen, and Dexter McGee, they all told me that you're having a hard time. You're really bummed out about all this COVID-19 bull. Just say it like that and you'll start feeling better. This COVID-19 thing is bull.
At this point, Andy had gone to rehab more than 10 times, had been kicked out of several residences, and lost close partners and friends after violent outbursts. Andy would soon horrify his last handful of fans on the web show Kermit and Friends, revealing his face to the camera after blacking out the night before.
Andy, show everybody your face, sweetheart.
Horrible. Hurts. It hurts really bad.
Andy, who did this to you?
Stranger. Literal stranger.
A stranger beat you up for no reason, Andy?
Yes.
What did they look like?
Gangster.
While there might have been a time in Andy's life where he'd received sympathy from his shrinking fan base, it looked like that had all dried up. Most people following Andy's actions and consequences were just doing it out of morbid curiosity. They believed he deserved this, and most even took pleasure in seeing him battered and bruised. That stranger was possessed by the spirit of Phil Hartman. Why aren't you at the hospital, Andy? They have painkillers there. Sounds like someone who knows him well. And it was around this time where a new dark pattern in Andy's career started to grow. Instead of Andy controlling the spectacle and going on stage, he was now in a place where he was basically homeless, with nowhere to go. He started participating in extremely low-level live streams for quick cash and places to stay. An IP2 streamer by the name of Wappy Flanker seized the opportunity, providing a shelter for Andy Dick and recording him. According to Wappy, this was a charity case, where he would use the money from the stream to purchase weed and vodka for Andy and give him food while he figured out what to do next. However, as weeks passed, it looked like Wappy was treating Andy more like a household pet that he'd openly abuse, while Andy slept on a small cot in the middle of the living room. Eventually, things got so out of control that the house was actually swatted by local law enforcement.
Now I got someone pounding on the gate.
Yeah, you do. Did you get it too?
Oh, I guess it's the police.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Police department! Are you inside the house? We're coming in!
Come in. What's going on?
Come on over, please.
Yeah. What's going on?
We're gonna talk to you outside, okay? No weapons on you?
No.
All right, keep your hands up. Turn around. Walk. Take them outside.
What's going on here?
Now, on one hand, there's a chance that Andy was afraid to escape the situation. Wappy Flanker was known for being armed during his streams, and nobody knows exactly what happened when the cameras weren't running. However, it's more likely that Andy simply found another enabler to feed his addictions while he got more and more depressed. IP2 streamers are known for being the bottom feeders of the internet. They rarely have a moral compass and are always finding some kind of desperate person to monetize their victims. Soon after the swatting incident, another streamer named Captain Content drove to Wappy's house in his crowded RV to allegedly save Andy from the situation.
Wappy said that he was gonna hurt me if I go there to pick you up. Now I have your word, and I've heard Wappy tell you that you're not going nowhere, and I have your word saying that you think you're being held hostage. I'm gonna call the police and I'm gonna inform that you yourself have said you're being kept hostage right now, and we're gonna get you out of there safely, okay? You got my word. Okay, see you in a bit.
But the truth was, this was just another toxic relationship that helped Andy stay drunk in a world of mental illness and mutual abuse. At one point, Andy looked like all the life had been sucked out of his body. He would just lie in bed asking Siri nonsensical questions about how he should deal with homelessness.
Yeah, because I know I was watching a part where you guys were getting things out of my...
Ultimately, Captain Content kept him around for a pathetic number of viewers, while he'd create situations that triggered Dick to be aggressive or even violent.
It's just... It's like really... Hey, why did you wake up? What's going on? I'm sleeping. Moron.
As if the situation couldn't get any worse, one of the people in Captain's RV accused Andy of drugging him and assaulting him. As a result, Andy was put in jail on a $25,000 bail. He's no longer a part of Captain's streams, but it's honestly hard to say if things will ever get better. Today, Andy Dick is still acting in minor roles for low-budget TV shows and movies, like Hollywood Werewolf, Alien Vampire Busters, The Wizard Zone, and T-Bird, where a homeless street fighter breaks up a trafficking ring exploiting young children. Most of his Instagram posts revolve around the successes of his past career or pretty desperate attempts to attach himself to other celebrities to prove to the world that he is still relevant and famous. However, Andy has not changed, and he is still stuck in this vicious cycle. He had a very brief moment after the incident in the RV where it might have looked like he was finally clean, only to show up on podcast after podcast drunk out of his mind, like how he showed up for the Matan Evans show unable to form a full sentence.
Oh wait, what's he got? What's up? Can I see what's in that?
Are you not worried about that though?
Worried about what? Seems like you are.
I mean, I'm a caring guy. I feel kind of bad.
Boo-hoo, cry me a river, doll.
Okay, well, I'll take that as a no. Do you think your friends would be doing you a favor by putting you down already?
Oh my god, I have friends?
Oh, we have a fungus growing out of the table.
Ow! Oh, that poor thing. What is it? Do we need to get some?
Sorry about that. There's a fungus growing out of the table.
It's a fungus. Is it? Yes. Is it on you as well?
No, there's nothing in here. It's just that table has a fungus.
Getting drunk before going on the Matan show is genius. This is either Andy's greatest bit or a Tuesday. But again, anyone who understands Andy Dick's story knows that he's not joking. This is not a bit. There comes a time where you just have to admit that getting wasted isn't performance art, nor is it comedy. It's an excuse to get away with anything while trying to make enough money to stay in a constant haze. Recently, Andy was caught in public once again, exposing himself in Los Angeles, getting exploited for quick views.
Oh, just relax.
I want
he
him.
works for TMZ. Relax.
I wish you hooked yourself up more. This viral, cuz.
I'm not gonna put it on the internet. I'm not gonna put it on the internet.
You're abusing an old man.
I'm not gonna put it on the internet. I'm not gonna put it on the internet. I just want to know why you're urinating down here, because you have kids that come down here.
And just the other day, Andy got so inebriated that it looked like he was dead. First responders had to administer Narcan on the side of the street to save his life.
Are you okay?
Doesn't it look like I'm 100% fine? 110%. There was a guy that was my age and I felt for him. He has kids. Did you know that part? He has kids and he was depressed and he was on the sidewalk and I'm like, I'll sit with you. And then he whipped out, I'm sorry, but, and I'm like, you know what? I might need a little bit of that. I wanted to see what he was doing. And also, I don't mind doing a little now and then.
At this point, anyone who attempts to interview Andy Dick is either desperate themselves or wants to squeeze one last viral meltdown out of a man who's barely conscious anymore.
Bob Odenkirk, all right, who really is doing well, except for his ball cancer.
I didn't hear about that, but
butt cancer.
I didn't hear about that either. But anyway,
it's some kind. Oh, I remember. He got hepatitis. No.
All right,
I remember now. He got a cold.
Oh, okay.
But he's fine now.
It's good.
He took Theraflu or whatever.
So back to the Ben Stiller days.
Why would I go to hepatitis? I didn't know.
If this is how Andy is behaving at 59 years old, it's pretty much conclusive that he will never change. Andy was not a misunderstood genius or a tragic artist taken too soon. He's a violent addict and predator who kept getting chance after chance because people thought his chaos was entertaining. For decades, Hollywood treated him like a lovable screw-up, but there's nothing about him that is lovable anymore. His story is relatable to those who have an uncle or cousin that continuously refuse to better themselves. You start to run out of sympathy, then you run out of patience, and eventually you run out of reasons to keep hoping they'll turn it around. It's not like you don't have love for them, but for your own sanity, you can't express any feelings towards that person, which leaves a cold emptiness towards them. It's sad, but it's merely a result of their own actions. Andy Dick has burned through every second chance a person can realistically have, and now what's left is a comedian that nobody is laughing at anymore. He's a man that spends spent his whole life spiraling downward and somehow still hasn't hit the bottom. There are very few stories like Andy's where a Hollywood star keeps spiraling further and further downwards, with each moment getting worse than the last. But one I would say is just as bad, if not worse than Andy's, is the horrifying downfall of Tila Tequila. But if you want to hear more about that, check out this video.